All right, let's get right into it. When you think of John Milton, you probably think of Paradise Lost. I mean, it's an absolute giant of English literature. But here's the thing, most people stop right there. They have no idea that its sequel, Paradise Regained, is where you find the keys to unlocking what Milton was really trying to say. So today we are going way beyond the badass battles to uncover the secrets you've been missing.
And let's just be real for a second about why Paradise Lost is so famous. It's because of this guy, Satan. As playwright Jay Keeley puts it, when you read the poem for the first time, it's just nonstop gushing about Satan. And can you blame us? He's charming, he's defiant, and he's hands down the most interesting character in the whole thing. He just completely runs away with the show. But what if that's only half the story?
And that brings us to the sequel's biggest problem. You've got Paradise Lost, this huge, celebrated, sprawling epic, and then you have Paradise Regained, which, to a lot of people, just feels like a shorter, plainer, and, let's be honest, kind of boring follow-up. It's totally stuck living in the shadow of its massive older brother.
I mean, just look at the numbers and you'll see what I'm talking about. Paradise Lost clocks in at over 10,000 lines. The sequel, barely 2,000. It's so much smaller that critics literally call it a brief epic. And that massive difference in sheer size is a huge reason why it just gets overlooked. It feels, well, less epic.
So if the charismatic, rebellious Satan is the scene stealer in Paradise Lost, it kind of makes you wonder, right? Who's the real hero of Milton's complete two-part vision? Well, the answer is way more complicated than you'd think. It actually forces us to totally rethink what a hero is supposed to be.
What Milton does is pretty brilliant. He sets up this incredible contrast. On one side, you've got Satan, who is the poster boy for what we think of as a classical hero. You know, it's all action, big speeches, dramatic gestures. But on the other side, you have the Son, Jesus, who represents a totally different model, Christian heroism. And this is all about quiet strength, patience, and changing minds, not breaking bodies. Now, to really get this, you have to remember who the Son is in the first poem. He is not the gentle figure you might be picturing. As one Reddit user perfectly put it, he's an avatar of wrath. He's this terrifying executor of God's will who rolls up in a flaming chariot carrying 10,000 thunderbolts. Seriously, he's genuinely scary. And that's the starting point for his character. But then, in Paradise Regained, we see the payoff. The Son completely rejects that old way of doing things. He literally chooses a new mission, to conquer hearts with words, not with force, to make persuasion, not fear, his weapon. This isn't a downgrade to a weaker hero. It's the completion of a profound journey, from raw power to quiet resolve. And you only get that full, amazing arc if you read both poems. Okay, this brings us to the #1 complaint people have about Paradise Regained, the style. It's simple, it's mostly dialogue, and it's missing all that epic flashiness from the first book. So what happened? Was this just a mistake? A deliberate downgrade from a master poet? Let's go back to that Jay Keeley quote because it really nails the feeling of reading Paradise Lost. Angels are literally throwing mountains at each other. There's a war in heaven. It's pure blockbuster spectacle. As they say, it's as titillating as the latest Avengers movie. It's awesome for sure, but it is very, very loud. And this leads us to the most important question of all. What if that huge shift in style wasn't a bug, but the entire point? What if Milton wasn't failing to be flashy, but was actively choosing a quieter kind of strength for a completely different kind of story? And when you look closer, it all makes perfect sense. The whole poem is basically a tense philosophical debate, a lot like the Book of Job. So of course Milton gets rid of the huge, flowery descriptions. This isn't a story about a cosmic war. It's about a war of ideas. Even Jesus says in the poem that he prefers the simple Hebrew Psalms over fancy Greek poetry. Milton is just taking his own hero's advice, choosing a poetic voice that's, more appropriate to his subject. The quiet style is the message. Okay, so we've looked at the hero, we've looked at the style, but now let's peel back one more layer. Because there's this incredible theory from scholar Eva Brann that the real revolutionaries in this story, the ones who feel the most like us, are not who you think they are. It actually all starts with Eve. Right before the fall, she has this argument with Adam where she says, "Let us divide our labors." As Brann hilariously points out, Eve basically invented the idea of separate workspaces. She's pushing for her own independence, for her own agency, but she's wrapping it in the language of, being more efficient. Sound familiar to anyone? And it gets even wilder. Eve tells Adam this story about when she first woke up. She saw her own reflection in a lake and just fell completely in love with it, pining away with vain desire.
So before she ever even met Adam, her first love was herself. Bran calls her the original self and image worshiper, which is just a shockingly modern idea of individualism. And this is where it all clicks into place. Eve and Satan are basically a team. They're two of a kind. They are both restless adventurers, totally driven by this burning need for new experiences and a hunger to figure things out for themselves. They're the new kids on the block, representing a whole new way of being.
Bran has a name for them, the original moderns. They represent everything that defines our world today, that focus on individual will, that desire for knowledge through experimentation, and that drive to be like gods, creating our own future. So, far from being these ancient, unrelatable figures, Satan and Eve are basically the blueprint for the modern person. And that's exactly why we find them so incredibly fascinating.
But hold on, because there is one final, absolutely explosive layer we need to uncover. A lot of academics now argue that Milton's epics aren't just about God and the devil. They might actually be secret political satires reflecting the insane revolutionary turmoil of Milton's own life.
Just look at this timeline for a second. Milton was not writing this stuff in some quiet academic bubble. The man was a radical political writer. He worked for the revolutionary government that chopped off the king's head. He watched that republic get built, and then he watched it all come crashing down when the monarchy was restored. His epics were written in the immediate, painful aftermath of that failed revolution.
And that's where this theory from Dr. S. Joseph Arl J. Raj comes in. If you read it this way, Paradise Lost becomes this sweeping political allegory. God is the tyrant king, Charles I. Satan is the flawed but heroic revolutionary leader, Oliver Cromwell, leading his parliamentarians, the rebellious angels, in a fight for freedom. And the fall from heaven? That's not just about sin. It's Milton mourning the very real, very recent failure of the English Commonwealth.
And that, of course, brings us all the way back to the sequel. Because if Paradise Lost is a funeral song for the failed revolution, then Paradise Regained becomes a subtle reflection of the new reality, the restoration of the monarchy. The son's quiet, patient victory is an allegory for the new political world Milton was forced to accept.
So here's the bottom line. We started off thinking of Paradise Lost as this one epic story with a kind of disappointing sequel. But what if we've been looking at it all wrong? What if Milton's work is actually one single masterpiece with all these incredible hidden layers, a deep theological drama, a shocking portrait of what it means to be modern, and a secret political history of a revolution that was lost? Maybe the paradise that was lost and then regained was never just about a garden after all.